Practice Test. Section 1. Track 37.
Good morning.
Morning. Can I help you?
Well, I'd like to join the library, please, and there's a specific book I need as well.
OK, that's fine. Now, I'll have to put all your details into the system. Just a minute. Could I have your name, please?
It's Mahmoud Al-Nazri.
Is that M-A-H-M-U-D?
No, it is O-U-D.
Sorry. And could you spell your surname, please?
A-L-N-A-Z-R-I.
And what's the address?
It's 195 Hills Road.
195 Hills Road. And do you know the postcode?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Never mind. Do you have a phone number?
Yeah, it's 07942 116470.
Now, I'm putting you down for individual student membership. That means your membership is free, but there are some services you'll have to pay for.
What kind of services?
Oh, if you want to request a book we haven't got on the shelves and we have to order it from storage. Or if you want to borrow CDs or DVDs.
I see.
Now, did you say there's a book you wanted to see this morning? I can tell you how to find it.
Yes, thanks. I've got the details written down here.
Let me see. Ah, dear. Listening skills for students.
What is it?
I'm afraid we'll have to request it from storage. I can input the details here, and you'll have to pay a fee.
How much is that?
It's $1.50 per book.
Okay. Well, could you order it for me, please?
Yeah, of course. Right. Now, you can come back this afternoon, and it should be here.
What time?
Oh, say 2:30 to be safe. And you'll need this reference number. Do you want to jot this down?
Okay.
It's RBC 096109. Got that? Give it to the librarian when you come back.
Right, thanks. So I need to come back here for about 2:30?
That's right. It might be here before that, but 2:30 should be safe.
Is there anywhere around here I could get something to eat while I'm waiting?
Of course. There's a canteen here in the library.
Good. Which way is that, please?
Go along the corridor just here, past the lecturer's reading room, and carry on down to the very end. That's the main reading room. Go in and turn right. The canteen's just through the door halfway down the room. You'll see the sign.
Thanks. That's great. Oh, and I need to use a computer as well. Where can I do that?
Well, there are PCs all over the building, but the main computer suite is right next to the canteen, in fact. Or there's another door into it from the main entrance, just over there on the left.
And the toilets?
The toilets are opposite the lecturer's reading room, second on your left as you go down the corridor.
Thanks very much.
Section 2. Track 38.
Good morning. What I'd like to do in this first session is to give you some ideas about how you can settle in, both in the city and the university. Every year we support a few hundred students from other countries, and today we want to give you the benefit of their experiences. For example, can you guess what the most common overall worry is for international students during their time here? Studying in English, you might think, or money worries. But in fact, the majority say that making friends is their biggest concern. You'll probably find, last year's intake of foreign students certainly did, that your biggest problem in week 1 isn't making friends, or English, or money, but simply understanding what is going on. It can be a confusing time. By the end of the year, though, for most of last year's international students, academic worries had replaced social and other concerns as the number one issue. I'll come on to make some detailed suggestions in a few minutes, but in the meantime, let me just say I think your main priority this week should be to meet people. Also important, of course, is to find out about living here, where things are, where to go at particular times, where the various facilities are, and so on. And you need to find out something about the town too. Perhaps the best advice I can give you about that is to get a bike. Cycling is usually the easiest way around the place. It's quicker than walking and cheaper than the bus. And probably more reliable too. There's a huge number of events this week. Really more than you can possibly get to, and part of the fun is choosing. But there are certain things that I think you must make sure you get to. These suggestions are based on comments made by students in previous years, by the way. The Language Centre has a seminar on Tuesday to show you the kind of support they can give you with the English language. They offer a great deal more than I could describe at the moment. But one thing I would suggest right now is they have an excellent computer laboratory at the Language Centre, and it's a good idea to use it as much as possible in your spare time, especially during the first term. The second must-see session is a lecture called Managing Your Money. This has all kinds of helpful suggestions about your finances, but the main one I'd like to underline now is how important it is for you to open a bank account at once. The lecture, by the way, is provided by Smith's Bank, but you could, of course, use any of the banks in town. There's not much difference between them. Finally, there are more than 50 university clubs and societies, and joining one or two is an excellent way to meet people and make friends. They have informal meetings going on all week. You can see the details on the handout. What I'd like to say about these is choose something that interests you and go along. Finally, we have a very informative student newsletter. You should all have a copy in your orientation pack. It's a good idea to check it for details of club events.
Section 3. Track 39.
Hello, Dr. Poole. I'm glad you're in. Have you got a few minutes, please?
Sure, Richard. Come on in. What can I do for you?
Well, I'm really confused at the moment, and I was wondering if we could talk about my Chinese language.
What, the lectures or the reading or what?
No, I feel okay with that side of things. What's bothering me is really how to study the language itself.
Ah, the private study aspect.
That's right. You see, I've studied Spanish and French and was able to use them quite a lot on holiday, and I met a lot of people I could practice with. But this is completely different. I have no idea where to start and no one I can practice with. I don't even know if I've got the right books.
Well, the books on the reading list are fine. You can keep working with those. Let's work out a study plan and get your priorities clear.
And my pronunciation is just terrible and I don't know how to improve it.
Remember, we're dealing with a language that's really different from English, French, or Spanish, so you probably need to take a different focus. I see pronunciation less as something to do a lot of intensive work on, and more as something that'll develop with practice and experience. Don't lose sleep over it at this stage.
I sometimes think I should just drop the course and go to China. Then maybe I could come back and study more. Would I be able to start the course again next year?
Well, you might, although I can't guarantee that. But I think you'll get much more benefit from a stay in China next year. I think you should concentrate on learning more of the basics first.
You mean grammar?
Yes. I think your priority for now should be to get really familiar with the grammar. Focus your private study on the language structures at the moment. The key is the written language. So you should dedicate as much time as you can to studying the way the language is written. Get plenty of practice, and then next semester you can start building up your vocabulary more.
So you don't think I should drop out of the course?
Not at all. I think the problems you're having are pretty normal ones, especially for someone who's not really used to learning a language in its written form. I think what you need to do most is improve your motivation. Look for opportunities to get into the language. You want to go to China, so make that a target, a reason for improving.
There's a scholarship competition for students who want to visit China.
So make an application. And think about what there is here, in the local environment, that you can use. There are plenty of Chinese students around. You can probably arrange some exchange classes with one of them. You speak English with them. They help you with writing basic Chinese sentences. Have you joined the China Society?
Yes, but I haven't been to any meetings yet.
We'll use them. It's a chance to hear people speaking and to see Chinese films.
I'll do that.
At this stage, you won't understand everything, and you can say very little, but you're laying foundations. Chinese is really different, so work on developing your mental flexibility. Read simple books, read popular magazines. Start getting familiar with the way sentences are organized.
What about speaking?
Well, that will really come later, when you know more. But what you can do now is lots of listening. It'll pay off later. Watch TV, go to those meetings. You can just sit and listen and join in when you're ready, maybe next year. Don't worry if you can't say anything. You won't be the only one.
Section 4. Track 40.
In today's lecture, we take a look at the background to the recent interest in spas, the natural water springs and the towns built on those springs, where people go to bathe and drink the waters. We tend to assume that treatment with water, often in luxurious surroundings, is a modern phenomenon. Nothing could be further from the truth. The idea of immersing yourself in water for the sake of better health, whether of mind, body or spirit, is very old, perhaps as old as humanity. In Finland, hot springs were exploited 3,000 years ago for saunas. The Japanese used hot springs too. It's reported that the first one opened at Izumo in 737 BC. It's interesting to note that leisure complexes developed here, although some hundreds of years afterwards. We know from writers, including Homer, that the ancient Greeks had a number of forms of social bathing as early as 500 BC, as did the Babylonians and later the Romans. The bathhouse is, of course, often cited as one of the Roman Empire's lasting contributions to civilization in the countries they ruled, although they may not have been the first to use natural waters in this way. The first large-scale public baths were constructed in 25 BC. We like to think that leisure centres are a modern idea. In fact, the Romans certainly had the same concept 2,000 years ago, and the bathhouses evolved into complexes which included restaurants, for example, as well as other forms of entertainment, a concept which, as we know, the Japanese had created previously. The early history of spas in Britain is not entirely clear. Legend has it that King Lear's father, Blalud, was cured of leprosy by the hot mud at Bath in 863 BC, and that he founded the town of Bath as a result. Certainly, the Romans developed an important spa centre there. This is hardly surprising, given that it is the only place in Britain where springs provide a continuous supply of hot water at about 50 degrees Celsius. Public baths seem to have fallen into disuse after the Romans left, but came into favour again during the 18th century when, right across Europe, they were considered the height of fashion, with visitors flocking to centres such as Baden-Baden in Germany, Evian-les-Bains in France, St-Moritz in Switzerland, and of course Bath, Buxton and Harrogate in Britain, often on the advice of their doctors. Inherent in all this is the assumption that bathing is good for the health, and that the waters may have medicinal value, as in the story about Blalud. Today, there is a general feeling that spa treatments are calming for the mind and body. However, there is less consensus about the medicinal value of spa waters. 250 years ago, doctors recommended taking the waters for many medicinal purposes. It was regarded as a tonic to improve the patient's general well-being. Many people today would agree that bathing often has such effects. Spa treatment centres and their proponents claim much more. Bathing in spa waters with a high sulphur content, they say, helps with skin conditions, and very highly carbonated salt waters, such as those at Baden-Baden and Harrogate, have long been thought to help with rheumatism and other conditions. That said, the bathing water used at many spa treatment centres is not, in fact, spa water, but simply water from the town's mains water supply. Similar claims are made for drinking spa waters. Some waters, because of their chemical composition, are claimed to clean and improve the general condition of the skin, and most are said to have a beneficial effect on the digestion, more so than ordinary water. If we accept that this may once have been true before the development of modern medicine, before doctors had other means of removing parasites from the body, for example, then what effects do today's much higher pollution levels have on groundwater? Finally, there is a third field to consider: bottled water. Many people on Earth have no clean water for drinking, washing, or cooking. Yet, worldwide, bottled water is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The cost of bottled water in developed countries may be as much as 10,000 times the cost of water from the tap. But is bottled water any healthier than the tap water, which costs so much less? As you can see, there are many questions to be answered, and we have only begun to look at the political aspects of water, a resource which will become more and more important and less easy to find, in fact, one of the world's biggest political issues, as the century goes on. And this is where we will pick up in our next lecture, looking at water as a geopolitical resource.